A few minutes here. Everybody loves warm shower, I know. One of the things about, and you guys at the back can't see it, so when we're done you kind of need to rotate through here and have a look. When you're outside the woods, I don't think you appreciate what a lot of the woods already do look like, and so I think it's worth coming in here. Again, so many people only see it from the outside, or they only see it at the other end where it's manicured. But anyway, this is where 3-6 would have come. Simply had the same time constraints and all that type of stuff. That, he had no advantages. Probably getting into the woods itself was a little bit easier for him than it was for Barry in 3-5. It was much more exposed up there. Most of the writing though only focuses on Smith and Noble's coming. Noble's lieutenant, but Captain Smith, they come in here. Again, they're supposed to hit the southern end of the woods, and they're supposed to travel the entire frontage of the southern end towards Baresh. What actually happens though is when Smith gets in here, the German machine gun fire kind of forces him to the north, and so instead of traveling basically due east, a lot of Smith's company start to push north into the woods. Okay, the two other companies again are exposed, not making good progress outside the wood line, because they're, once they break out, as we go on the bus, you'll see how exposed that is. They quickly become a German fire and they get bogged down. Noble's company in here, again, is supposed to be following in trace of Smith, but they lose contact very, very quickly. So essentially you've got a company in the fight in the southern belt of the German defense here that quickly goes from company to platoon to squad to basically team and individual Marines doing their individual actions in the forest here. What is successful though is a couple of lieutenants, Timmerman and Hurley, actually start moving across the entire frontage, and they make it almost to Baresh inside the tree line. Okay, Timmerman's a interesting character. Makes all the way across there. I haven't been able to research him further, but I found out the other day in the Second World War he's not in the Marine Corps. If he's in the Marine Corps, he may be in the Marine Corps, but he's actually working in the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, which ends up becoming the forerunner of the CIA. So for the guys for 3-6, you may want to Google him and find out a little bit more about the history of the individual, because not only is he successful here, I mean, he's the only guy who actually makes it to the objective. And like I said, if you pull out your maps, he makes it all the way into the wood line, basically right northwest of Baresh. And when he gets there, he leaves the platoon, basically about 50 Marines. By the time he gets there, he's down to 17. Okay, and he sends out a corporal and another Marine as a scout, and they push further out going towards Baresh, because he knows that's his objective. As he moves out of the tree line there going towards Baresh, the folks there start firing at him, and the Germans from behind start firing him, so he quickly beats a retreat back into the wood line. By this stage he's only got about 5 Marines. Okay, we mentioned that the thing about the Germans' emphasis on machine guns. These 5 Marines come up and they see a couple of German machine guns. There's the 2 sort of section leaders for the machine gunners. The other 17 guys are only there to hump ammo and protect those guns. Okay, because everything's about the firepower. Because I mentioned about the manpower, how low they are. One of the big problems for the Marines though, when we first get into this fight, we're kind of stupid. All right, the Marines would actually overwhelm machine guns positions. Okay, tag, you're it, and we move on. And the Germans, okay, and they just turn the gun around and shoot us in the back. There's nothing illegal with that. It's just something we didn't know. We didn't sort of comprehend. So the first couple of hours in the fight, Marines were, overrunning positions and then moving on to the next gun and leaving that exposed. That ceased very, very quickly. It was interesting. On the first day, 3-6 captured about 20 German prisoners on the first day. For the rest of the time, that 3-6 from the fight, 0. Okay, I'm not reading anything into that, right? But no, it's something that just did happen. The Marines very quickly learned this was not the bandits we've been chasing in Central America anymore. These professionals, they give them an opportunity. Again, there was nothing illegal about it, but the Marines would come in, overwhelm positions, And the Germans, like you said, you know, they're smart. They're not Supermen, but they're very smart. So when you overrun one gun, as you're approaching it, you're being taken under fire for several other positions. I'd read reports about them being in the trees, and at first that didn't sound right. But again, so many reports talk about this. But the Germans apparently did have things up in the trees. One thing about, and Colonel Sullivan, as an artillery guy, when we first get into the woods, this is what it looks like. I mean, it hasn't been shelled to bits. When you look at the photos at the end of the fight, it's a bunch of toothpicks. All right, but when we first come in here, even late in the day, you know, good illumination, the visibility was very, very difficult. Good thing though about vegetation, it absorbs a lot of blast, obviously. The problem is though, if a round actually hits some of these trees, and these ones here are relatively small, but you know, the size of the big trees, artillery round hits that thing, all you do now is have a million, you know, wooden splinters. So you get taken out by a wooden splinter or metal splinter, it makes no difference. So vegetation is good because it does absorb a lot of the blast effect. But again, if a tree gets hit and now that thing comes moving through the forest, you know, a lot of Marines, you know, again, it doesn't matter if you're getting killed by blast or by wood or metal, but we obviously suffered a lot from the artillery. But initially, with the first couple of days of the fight, this is the sort of stuff the Marines faced. As soon as you got in here, and for you guys back there, this very quickly drops off and goes back up on the other side of the drawer there. So come forward and make sure you have a look around before we move back to the back there. But you know, very, very quickly, once you get out of the fields, out there you're being exposed, being hit by machine gun fire. Once you come in here, you can see how the terrain very quickly canalizes the units and stuff like that. And again, even with today's technology, all the stuff we have, then these guys were simply carrying a rifle. Theoretically, they all had bolt cutters because they were being trained for the trench warfare with a wire. There wasn't too much of that here, so the Marines were lightly armed, no doubt about that, and didn't have a lot of gear on. They have no protective gear. They have a helmet, okay, which is fine as long as it was a glancing blow. It would, you know, probably save your life. But if anything directly on it, would go straight through the helmet. So very lightly armored, if you will. You know, today when we put a battle rattle on, it's bloody weighs a ton, especially as you get older. But you know, very minimal protections for the Marines. It's basically just a blouse and a weapon and a bayonet. So very minimal that way. But once you're in here, you can see how quickly it'll be difficult to control. I mean, even at platoon level, this is a tough fight, let alone trying to do it as a battalion. But basically, once 3-6 hits here, you know, Sibley's in the fight. One of the things his XO writes about was the difficulty of the battalion commander coming forward into the fight. Again, that leading into it, the problem was when things were going bad, when those other companies, you know, to the south of the wood moving in the open, they were getting pinned down by fire. The XO was trying to send runners up to find Sibley, but you know, very, very difficult. There's no comms. Everything was done by runners, so decision stuff took a long time to make. Otherwise, the guys had to go ahead and make them on their own and stuff like that. So, again, a very, very difficult type of C2. Yeah.
Since the comms were so bad and everything, how hard was it to distinguish the friend from foe? I mean, with the disc of everything.
The biggest thing is, I would say, obviously, you starting from one direction, it's simply direction of fire would be a big part of it. The only redeeming feature was our helmets looked so different from theirs. That would be one thing. They all had the cold shell helmets, as we call them. So that would be one thing. But essentially, you know, you're here, you were moving that way, you know, you're taking fire from that way, that's where the enemy is, type of stuff. There's been very little written about friendly fire, with the exception of artillery. I'll jump ahead a fraction, but like, because we're going to be in Baresh talking about that. But during that fight, even after 2-6 takes it, the French and the army are still shelling it. Oh, wow. And we're sending back flares trying to, you know, stop the fires. It takes several hours to get runners back to high enough level to where they're actually hardwired into the batteries. That would be at like regimental CP level to get back to the artillery. Eventually we get it turned off, but we're fighting in the village after we've secured the village, but yet it's still getting shelled by us. So definitely a lot of artillery problems. Haven't really heard too much about friendly fires, with the exception of on the night of the 6th when 2-5 was going up on the road we were on. We drove up before we got off to go and look at the wheat field. The main road behind that, 2 5s walking up there, and they get in a firefight with 3 5. Okay, and luckily, the good thing about it is once you start yelling, it's an American voice, right? So they would, once you could overshout the guns, then you can turn them off. But that was definitely one time where we had a friendly fire incident. But the rest of the time, guys would be attuned to the weapon systems. They're quite distinctive. Beth's actually a weapons expert. She can probably add into some of the stuff. But that was it. And is Beth? Where's she? Okay. I mentioned about Hurley and Timmerman, but Robinson thing. Okay. The only reason I know about the gentlemen is because Beth wrote about them, so she can tell me to shut up in a second here. But tell you about the 2 lieutenants, Timmerman and Hurley, who make it across. Marines are gun nuts. Well, Samuel Colts.
Caldwell Colt Robinson was lieutenant. He was the great nephew of Samuel Colt. His father actually ran Colt Manufacturing Company. Caldwell Colt Robinson left Yale, where he was a science student, and joined the Marines. So when we talked about, the level of education in the 6th Marines, he's a prime example. He's actually killed here. He was approaching a German machine gun position. He had his whistle in his mouth. He was basically cut across the torso. I've held the trench whistle in my hand. You can see his teeth marks from where he bit down on it when he was shot. But basically, that's the story of Caldwell Colt Robinson.
Other questions? Okay.